What's up, y'all? I'm Matt Forte here with Sports Spectrum, and today's episode will be brought to you by Tyndale and Jason. Today, we're talking about the Courage for Life Study Bible. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, let's be honest, Matt, right? Being a man of courage is not easy. And every day we face pressure to stay quiet, play it safe, or believe the lies that culture has thrown at us. But real courage starts with truth. And this Courage for Life study Bible for men that you mentioned has a Bible study on every page. I'm actually holding it in my hand, and I was looking just to confirm. You never know when you're seeing these commercials and you're reading a script, but inside it's literally there's a study Bible on every single page, plus stories of courageous men and tools to help you live with purpose. Pretty cool stuff, right?
Yeah, it's huge, man. I remember when I first found out that they had study Bibles, I was like, wait, this is way better than trying to read on my own and just kind of, you know, gain from that. But it's very useful, especially as a man, as it mentioned, with temptation and life lessons and learning from what other people have gone through. It's great to apply that to your life.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd do without a study Bible, if I'm being honest with you. I love God's word, and there is revelation when you read it for sure. But I think there's also has to be, through transformation, understanding what you're reading. And I think these study Bibles have been great. And this one's a beautiful Bible as I hold it in my hand, this Courage for Life study Bible for men, for 1,464, as I mentioned, Bible studies, one on every page. And if you want more, you can scan the page, and the Filament app that we've talked about in the past gives you even more to explore. And they say there is also a women's version as well. So if you're a lady and you want to get the women's edition, you can do that. Find out more at courageforlifebibles.com. That's courageforlifebibles.com.
What's up, y'all? This is Sports Spectrum. I'm Matt Forte here with Jason Romano. And Jason, I'm excited today to talk with Jason McCourty, NFL defensive back, Super Bowl champion as well, but then also current NFL analyst. Jason, welcome to Sports Spectrum. Love your work. How you
Rich?
doing?
Yes, sir. I'm doing good. Appreciate you guys having me on. Excited to be here with you guys.
Yes, sir. So we are upon NFL football season, which is always exciting. What are you most excited about headed into
Man,
this new season?
I think it's just getting it started. I think when you had the opportunity to play for a while, as you can understand, Matt, that training camp coming upon you, like I was excited for the season, but it was also scary because I was like, man, training camp sucks and I got to go get in the thick of it. Now it's just pure excitement. As a fan, you want to see what the Cam Wards, the Shador Sanders, the Jackson Darts, you want to see what these young guys that just got drafted, what they're going to look like, the veterans who maybe didn't have a great year coming off injury, what that bounce back season is going to look like. So you take away all the hard work that we had to do while we were playing. Now you just get to be a fan of the NFL. So getting to see, can the Eagles repeat all of those fun storylines that are upon us? You get to watch them unfold, and for me to have a platform to talk about them is awesome.
Yeah, you're right, man. You know, camp is always something that, I mean, you love football and you kind of look forward to it, but once you get there, you're like, this is not, the greatest part about football, training camp. But uh, speaking with some of the storylines that you just mentioned and some of the athletes and some of the, rookie guys and new draft picks and things like that, what storyline are you most interested in following this season?
Getting specific, I love the Jair Alexander addition to the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm fired up to see what he looks like. While I was in the league, I got to talk to him a few times after a game, and he was one of my favorite players to watch being on the opposing sideline. For one, his just pure ability to get up there and cover guys one on one. But the other part of it was his trash talk and the tenacity in which he played with. Remember a few years ago going against Justin Jefferson, he's doing the gritty after breaking up a pass. Like he plays with that fire and that energy that as a fan, you just love to watch him out there and watch to see the way he plays. I think the other one for me is as a former Tennessee Titan, Cam Ward going first overall has not gotten the fanfare, the excitement of national media. Like no one's really talking about the impact that he can have on the Tennessee Titans, which I love as an alum of the organization because you like to fly under the radar. And for him, you get an opportunity to go out there and showcase your talents, having Calvin Ridley on the outside. I want to see what he brings to the table. Could the Titans be a team this year that could surprise some people in that division where obviously Houston is kind of the front runner, but it's really up in the air to see who's going to be able to win the AFC South?
Yeah, yeah, I noticed that too. Kind of flying under the radar with Cam and not getting the fanfare or the hype, which I see as a good thing.
Hmm.
It keeps you humble in one aspect, but then also gives you that fire to say, "All right, I'm gonna show y'all." And so I see that as a positive. I was wondering if how you saw that. I guess coming out, you're a year after me. You was 2009 draft. You probably wanted to get drafted higher than sixth round, right? But what did that do for you inside? Like, how did that feel you coming into the league saying, you know what, I think I'm better than sixth round or whatever round? Um, and then how did that feel you going forward with your career?
Man, it continued to add to the fire. For me, I wasn't a high recruit coming out of high school. So I was a two-star recruit, and the two stars came when I committed to Rutgers. So I had Rutgers, Boston College, and Kent State. Those were my only D1A offers, and then some one double A. So for me, like that fire and that belief in myself to prove other people wrong was always there. So I think, and my mom instilled that in me at a young age. So when I end up getting drafted at the end of the sixth round, you show up and you know you're going to Nashville, and it's just like, yo, I got to prove not only the naysayers wrong, the people from the outside, but the people within the organization. Because to your point, Matt, I believed I was better than a sixth round draft pick. So the Tennessee Titans are on my list as well as proving that I'm a better player than that. And then to prove it to yourself, I think as an athlete, self doubt always creeps in. And it's going to come at different phases of our careers and different phases of our life. So sometimes you have to go out there, look yourself in the mirror, and be able to prove to yourself, hey, I have the confidence, I have the ability to go out there and show what I can do. So, I mean, I credit being drafted late to a lot of the things that I've achieved while I was playing, but then also post career, because it's that same chip on your shoulder now getting into broadcasting. I felt like you now feel like you're better than some other people that may be higher than you. So you're putting in the work. I think that's the biggest variable within it all. You can feel however you want to feel, but if it doesn't match up with your work ethic and what you're doing when no one's looking, then none of it matters.
Yeah, yeah, I was a two-star recruit as well, and I think my mom gave me one star, and then my dad paid the other guy to give me another star. So, the recruiting process isn't foolproof, but within that, there could creep in some spiritual things, right? Like, oh, jealousy, envy, I'm better than this person, or resentment, things like that. How do you keep those away from you in a moment like that, or even as you transition into broadcasting, which we'll talk about now? I mean, because it's not foolproof. Like, play 12 years in the league. A lot of six round, guys don't get to do that, win a Super Bowl championship, all of these things. How do you keep those things like that from creeping in and kind of ruining, I guess, your spirit and how you go about what you do every day?
Man, it's funny you ask that because that's a challenge. And for me, it was a lot closer to home than for other people. I had an identical twin brother who gets drafted the year after me. I get drafted to the Titans, who were 13-3 the year before I got there. So I'm showing up like, all right, I make this team. We're going to be winning some ball games and we can continue to progress. We didn't make the playoffs for the first 8 years of my career while I was in Tennessee. Meanwhile, my brother gets drafted to the New England Patriots with Brady and Belichick, and all he does is win 14 games every single year. He's playing in the Super Bowl his second year. You fast forward, I don't know which year it was, but he's playing in the Super Bowl in Houston. And prior to that, every time he'd make it to the Super Bowl, I'd always fly out for the entire week. So whatever he needed help with, tickets for family, when the family comes in town, taking them out, hosting them, just things that he didn't have to worry about. He could focus on the game. So that year, the Super Bowl's in Houston. I say to my wife, I'm like, man, I'm tired of going to all these daggone Super Bowls. It's just a family member, a plus one, and I'm hosting everybody. And to your point, like it was pure envy. Like I wasn't mad at my brother, but because we're in that same profession, I wanted to be exactly where he was. I felt like I had put the work in, I had paid my dues. Like, why wasn't it happening for me? Why could I not maybe reach the Super Bowl, but I don't even know what the playoffs taste like. I don't even know what it means to play meaningful football going down the stretch of a season. So I had decided like that year I wasn't going to the Super Bowl. Like he can go, he can figure it out. And the week of something hit me. And I was like, I gotta go. I gotta be down there to support him and support the fam. And I ended up going, but that was a huge lesson for me at that point. And it was just when you feel that way, it's the thief of joy because
Mm.
you can't celebrate the things that you've accomplished. You can't celebrate the things that one of the closest people to you in the world has already accomplished and is on the brink of accomplishing and possibly being able to hoist a Lombardi trophy, something that we both had dreamed about as little kids. So it definitely is a challenge to not let it creep in. I think a lot of it is who you surround yourself with and what your foundation is. So you just talked about the spiritual part, like, and that was one of the things that I've learned now when you transition out. It was so much, I thought it would be harder while you were playing to stay in the word and to stay with your spirit moving in the right direction. Playing was so much easier because you were surrounded in a locker room with some like-minded guys that were all trying to chase it. Yes, everybody's not going to be the same, but you always had a core group to one hold you accountable. I think when you get out of it, it's not as easy to find that core group. You're all spread out, everybody gets busy. You don't have that convenient point where you all get to the locker room every single day facing some of the same problems. So it was a challenge while I was playing, but it was something that I constantly had to think about and talk about as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Comparison being the thief of joy, and I think we do that a lot these days. Like social media wise, you're comparing what your page posts and this curated life that other people have made. You're comparing it to yourself, and there's a lot of pressure and anxiety and depression that are
Hmm.
skyrocketing because of that. But I want to talk about the brotherly connection because and the faithfulness of God, because you mentioned that story. Um, you guys are twins, and he comes into the league and his experience is a lot different than yours, but yet through faithfulness and staying obedient and like I'm a trust God in this aspect, you guys are the first set of twins to play in the Super Bowl together, but then also to win a Super Bowl, which is, I mean, that's a great accomplishment. You can tell the grandkids all of that, and tell those stories. But I got a brother who's 2 years older than me and super close. So I couldn't imagine being how close you guys are as twins. So talk about, first of all, the brotherly connection, and then later on to be able to trust God enough to say, instead of questioning God and like, why can't I have what He has and this and that, trust in the process, and then in the end seeing the result of faithfulness in that aspect.
Man, it's so crazy when you let go and let him do the work, how things just come together. You think so many years we're like, all right, how can we make this happen? Like, what can we do to generate this and get us on the same team? And you fast forward throughout my career, 8 years in Tennessee, get released by the Titans, and I'm a free agent. I get released 10 days before the draft, so the process drags on. So it gets to be around May, and at this point, like, we're sitting there, like, I'm a free agent. Like, this is our opportunity to maybe be able to come together. But for the Patriots, Malcolm Butler was there. They had just signed Stephon Gilmore to a big contract. They had Logan Ryan, they had Eric Rowe. They had multiple guys at my position. So it didn't really make sense. And the interest wasn't there. And I signed with the Cleveland Browns. I play out that season and I signed a 2-year deal. So I'm thinking I'm probably going back to Cleveland and finish up that season. Doesn't obviously go the way we want. We don't win a single game, and we get a new GM, John Dorsey, that year, and he calls me and tells me that he's going to release me. And to be honest, I was fired up. I was ready for a new start after what I went through that season with the team. And Dev ends up FaceTiming me this same day. I tell him that, hey, I'm getting released. He texts Belichick and says, hey, coach, Jay's getting released. Two McCourtys are better than one. Belichick never responds to him. He FaceTimes me probably 2 hours later and is like, yo, you're a New England Patriot. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, Bill just called me and said they just made the trade for you. You're gonna be a New England Patriot. So for all of those years, we were talking about how we could make it happen. And unbeknownst to us, Dev's one text message didn't seal the deal. Just things fell into the right place where it made sense to have a union for me to go to the New England Patriots, for us to be able to team up together. And I remember getting on the plane, and it was May or whatever, March, and flying to New England. And Dad picks me up from the airport. And I had said to him, my wife said to me when it happened, she was like, listen, you're going into a new environment, into a different situation. For the past 9 years, you've talked to your brother daily about what it means to be a New England Patriot, about the cutthroatness of this business and how everything is done. lower your expectations and go in there with a thankful heart of you get an opportunity to play alongside your brother, something that you dreamed of. Whether you play 60 snaps a game or you play 2 snaps a game, enjoy the entire process of what it's going to be like to be in the same town, in the same building. And it was such the right perspective to go in, because that first game of the season, I only played 5 plays. The fourth preseason game, I was playing in the second half thinking I wasn't going to make the team, like having no idea how that season was going to turn out. And you think about throughout the course of that year, not only winning a Super Bowl alongside one another and my mom doing confetti angels after the game on the turf, but our kids finally got to live 5 minutes away from each other. We would go on double dates with their wives. Like there was so much good that came out of us being on the same team and being able to reconnect beyond just the X's and O's and us arguing in the meeting room, but the family time that was spent together and the growth that came there as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely something to hang your hat on and thank God for it with a grateful heart, as you said. I wanted to ask you also because uh, your wife seems like she got some wisdom, to be able to, say that to you before going into the situation, and that could be a downer where you like, man, it's cutthroat, it's this and that, and skew your perception already before even going in. Um, Talk about the importance of the role of Melissa in your life as far as the football aspect, but then transitioning out of the sport, because not a lot of guys, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, transition well out of
Mhm.
football or professional sports in general. So, how big has she been as a cornerstone in your family as your wife and the mother of your kids?
Yeah, she's been everything. I think obviously the stuff that we all say when you're playing professional sports is, the sacrifices we make. She's there taking care of the kids and all of those things. But I think so far beyond that, we've been together. We met at Rutgers. So since I was 19 years old, and I say to people all the time, she was kind of my sports psychologist through it all. So you think about my career, and I said it, spend 8 years in Tennessee, you don't make the playoffs a single time. You go 2-14, you go 3-13. We started out with you're drafted, you're disappointed because you get drafted at the end of the sixth round. Like she's been the person I've confided in through all of those things. Sometimes when you have close friends and your boys that you're teammates with or your brothers, sometimes you feel as though like you can't be emotional or really share how you feel, the disappointment. She's been that person for me. Coming home on a day-to-day basis, the frustrations that have come alongside with trying to win at a high level, with being a captain on a team or a leader and trying to invest in guys. And sometimes you're frustrated with that. I've constantly brought that home. I said to sometimes I think she has to tune me out because I come home and now I'm talking for a living. I talk just as much at home and it's just like, all right, I don't want to hear all of this at home. But she's been tremendous. I think not only being a sounding board, but man, holding me accountable. I can remember going through contract negotiations and I would share with her what my goals might have been going into it. And then when you get in the thick of the negotiations of standing your ground and standing up for what you said you felt like you were worth, she was constantly that person in my ear where it was just like, well, no, you said that how you perform, you felt like you were owed this. They're only offering that. And you're having those communications with your agent. And there was one year where she got on the phone with my agent and was just like, no, like we should be here. And I think it wasn't about the aspect of how much money you were or weren't making, but it was about the belief in yourself, where it's like, hey, if I'm going to sit here and listen to you say these things, I'm going to hold you accountable to believe in them for yourself. So you think about playing on 4 different teams throughout my career, there was a move that was incorporated with all of those. And she was the one orchestrating that, finding schools for the kids, camps, and all of those different things. It was such a trying year for us when we left Tennessee and we go to Cleveland. We had already had our 2 kids. Our youngest one was born in February in Nashville. We moved to Cleveland in July, and our youngest one has severe food allergies. So throughout that entire process, we're moving. I'm in training camp. She's the one going to the allergist and all of those things, handling all of this. And I remember at this time there was a terrible storms in Puerto Rico. She had family members that were down there, and now we're in the midst of a season where we're not winning a single game. And I'm so frustrated at work, and she's at home and she's dealing with 3 kids and a young one who's constantly crying, dealing with eczema and all of these different things. And I'm almost completely mentally removed, and she's at home dealing with all of it on her own. And that season was hard for us, man, of just being able to connect and being able to figure out which way to go. And I remember going to PAO that year, Pro Athlete Outreach, which helps guys, whether you're a couple, whether you're single, but reconnecting with God, reconnecting with teammates, everything in between. And I remember going there, and I remember going down to the meetings, being in the worship and doing different things, and then going up to our room and having conversations like about our marriage of like, which direction are we going in? Because right now, especially from her perspective, like this wasn't a place that either one of us wanted to be in. And it was, you talk about your steps being ordered. It was everything we needed at that time. And this was in February. We had no idea we were going to end up in New England that next year, getting closer to home where now her parents could drive up and visit her. My mom was constantly down. Two people, my brother and his wife that we were extremely close with, me and Matthew Slater and his wife Shaza. So like just things moving in the right direction. And a lot of that, I know it's a long answer, was just her, like being a rock and standing her ground, holding me accountable and the people around us in every aspect of our lives.
No, no, you earned the points just now. You got to have a long answer when it comes to the wife, because me and you've had similar experiences, man. Like I would say, if I'm gonna give some advice to the current players that are out there, get your wife to be your sports psychiatrist or psychologist, uh, because man, I did the same thing with certain injuries, and
Mm-hmm.
man, they drafted this guy, and I'm already the running back. I play every down, or
Yep.
this dude's being paid this much, and I'm not. All of that stuff that can eat at your heart and your soul at the same time. And then PAO, man, like shout out to PAO, which is under, Sports Spectrum is under PAO's brand. And just some being like you said, being what you needed in that moment, which
Mm-hmm.
is not a credit just to PAO, it's a credit to God and his sovereignty in our life, man. Like there's tough seasons that we go through. I made the playoffs once in 10 years, never, and it was the third year of my career, never tasted it again, never even came close. Uh, and so, you start to think and you have self-doubt and things like that. But transition, as you said, out of Tennessee brought about certain issues and struggles that God reproved you or refined you through, and then you were able to, on the other side, see how gracious God is
Mm-hmm.
to the obedient. And so, with that being said, transitioning is hard in general, no matter what it is. It could be from one team to another, it could be from one season to another, but this transition from active NFL player to retired NFL player, for you from the outside in, it looks seamless. Like you've been right into broadcasting and you're an NFL analyst and all these things. You're on TV. You're doing that work. Um, how were you able to? Perception is that it was easy, but I know it's never easy like that. But how was it, first of all, and how are you handling stewarding the time that you have, because traveling or being on TV and stuff is definitely taxing when you have a family.
Man, stewarding the time, man. We could do a whole podcast on just that. And I could add my wife in and she'll sit right next to me and she'll be looking over my shoulder of every word that I say. You're right. I think from the outside looking in, what I was able to do was I was able to stay busy. And I think that helps and hurts when you're transitioning. For me, I retired one week. The next week, I accepted the job on NFL Network doing Good Morning Football. So when I walked away from the game, I had something to look forward to every single day. Similar to when you're playing, whether it's in season or off season, you're looking forward to your workouts. You're always trying to improve on something. So when I got into broadcasting, I found something new to work at and something to try to improve at every single day. The challenge for me was there's expectations not only for you as a player when you walk away from the game, but there's expectations for your family as well when you walk away from the game. And because a lot of times we don't know exactly what that transition is going to look like, you're not able to prepare one another for what's to come. So I had no idea that I was going into broadcasting for a year or two leading up to my retirement, because then you can have those conversations. Normally, people retire at 65, and you're talking about retirement for probably 10 years of what it is you're going to want to do. Are you going to move as a family? Whatever the case. For us, it's sudden. For me, it was having a Liz Frank on my foot, limping off the field, and that was the last play I was ever going to
Mm,
play in the NFL. So my wife's birthday is in December, and two out of the three kids' birthdays are in December. So my wife's thought process was when we walk away from the game, like we'll do these grand December vacations and we'll go somewhere as a family. That was never on my bingo card, vacations in December. So when I accept this new role, football season is probably busier than it was when I was playing. So there was a time period for us that we really had to sit down and figure out what we were going to do. Like for me, it was, is doing Good Morning Football 200 something odd days out of the year. Is that what I want to do? Is it something else? But trying to figure out a balance. And to be honest with you, we still don't have that balance completely figured out of how it's going to work, because you talked about it. For me, during the season, calling games, you're traveling every Friday. You're doing studio stuff for ESPN. So there's days where you're on a 2-hour drive to Bristol, Connecticut. So like all of those things are time away from the family. So to be honest with you, I haven't figured it out. It's still a transition piece, because ultimately, I think the 3 years that I've been out, I'm gaining clarity on exactly what I want to do. And I
Mm,
think the biggest piece we've learned is giving each other grace throughout the process. I think she's been tremendous at it, of understanding all of the things we talk about while we're playing, the fear of going broke, the fear of divorce, all of the things that we go through when we transition. So I think she's given me a ton of grace to be able to figure out exactly what I've wanted to do. I've had to return the favor of being able to understand in her moments of frustration, like you can't take it selfishly and say, like, well, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. I'm trying to continue to provide or I'm trying to stay busy. Whereas like, no, you really got to sit down and hear her when she has to take one kid to tumbling practice, another kid to football practice, another kid to softball, like all of these different things that she's having to figure out, where she thought that this was going to be a time for us to do it all. So
yeah.
the transition has not been seamless. It's been some ups and downs from one job to the next job, and now figuring out what that schedule looks like. And then also learning that you have to say no to some opportunities. And that's a hard thing to do, because as a player, we've always been taught the more you can do, man. If I can play
Yeah.
special teams and I can play my side of the ball and I can be a leader, like put as much on my plate as possible. Where now I'm kind of learning, like the point of doing all of that then is to make sure you can be as present as a father, as a husband as possible.
Yeah, yeah, we can. I mean, it's definitely a sacrifice to do broadcasting and things like that. I started off as well doing some local ones because I was like, there's no way I could go to LA or to New York or Connecticut and be in Chicago and be actually a present father
Yep.
and husband here. So shout out to the guys who can make that happen, and that's how their dynamic works. But it is tough. But I think one of the things that you're gaining, that God is gaining clarity, giving you clarity on, is you the unique purpose that God has given you within marriage, right? It says the two become one. So when two people become one and you transition out of football, that was just a season of playing football. It's like you guys have to have a purpose. And this is what we talk about at PAO as well with everybody, because we know the statistics of divorce and going broke is you and your wife have to be one. Like your purpose, God given purpose, because that's going to transcend football, that's going to transcend broadcast and like all of that stuff. Your purpose together, and that's what helped me with my wife Danielle and us in like this time where I was tired and locked in on Thanksgiving, analyzing the Bears game when they at home eating and having fun. I'm like, this is that fun. And that's crazy because we're also in December too. I'm December, and my wife is, my son is, and her dad is. So we got
Mm.
everybody
So
in
yeah, you feel
December.
the pain.
Yeah, I know, I know. But I wanted to talk real quick about the grieving process, because when you finished ball, it wasn't, you said you wasn't, under your own, I'm gonna retire. It was an injury, and the game retired you essentially, and you jumped right into broadcasting. So, what was the grieving process like? Is it still going on? And because there's no blueprint or no cookie cutter situation on how to grieve, something that you've done since you were a kid your whole entire life.
It was, it sucks when you walk off the field and you're limping and you won't ever get a chance to kind of rebound. The good that came out of that was it was clear to me that I was done.
Mm,
So I got hurt 7 games into the season in 2021. We had moved the entire family to South Florida, going to play possibly my last year as a Miami Dolphin, year 13. You don't know at that point. You're like, every year is year to year because you don't know if I don't play well this year, no one's going to want me to play the following year. So it's all performance based truly at that point. So you get hurt 7 games in, have a Liz Frank injury, find out you're going to have surgery. And my initial reaction was, why me? And it's
Mm.
crazy because you look at it from the outside and you're like, dude, like you got almost 13 full years in and you're going to be the guy to complain, like, why me? But like, I genuinely felt that way. I was pissed off that I couldn't finish out my career. And I literally remember sitting there saying, like, to God, that like I only wanted 17 more games. Like I was totally content with walking away after this. We rented a nice house in Miami. We're like, this is almost like we're retiring and moving to Miami. We're going there. We're going to enjoy it. And I felt so sorry for myself. And one of my wife's best friends, who went through a bad bike accident, sent me a book, The Meaning of Life. And it talks about being in concentration camps back in the day and really having to look at yourself and say, like, why am I here? And what am I doing? And it was so refreshing because as I was reading that book, my son, who was probably 5 at the time, who loves football, every Sunday, you're now not going to the game, any of the away games. So on Sundays, we would bring a TV from out of one of the other rooms and we put it in the living room and we have 2 TVs going and we'd have Red Zone going. We'd have whatever. We're watching multiple games at a time. And he's sitting there and he's asking me questions about the games. And as much as I thought, like, and it took a little bit of time because now you're talking about 11, 12 weeks of still being in football season, but you're not playing. And I felt like that was my grieving process of feeling sorry for myself, of then diving into a book, taking notes on that book every single day. And then kids, man, like they change you. I can vividly remember watching Antonio Brown throw his stuff in the crowd while we had the sound on another TV. And my son goes, Daddy, Daddy, what's he doing? What's he doing? And clicking over to the TV. And
Yeah.
although that wasn't a great moment in football for AB and all of that, but it's such a vivid memory for me because like I was going through my own stuff, but those Sundays of sitting and watching those games with my son and talking ball, it allowed, like, that was as if like you're mourning someone, but you get a chance to celebrate that person while you're talking about them at a repass or whatever. For me, like that was every Sunday, me being able to celebrate the game of football as I'm passing it on to him. And I don't think I realized it like in the moments of what that was doing for me, that now by time April rolled around and I went to the broadcast boot camp and like different opportunities were coming around, like I had dealt with the loss of football throughout the course of finishing out that season. And I think that helped me tremendously because I've heard guys talk about it in that way of that, like you do. Ryan Clark, I was with recently, and he said, you have to mourn the loss of football because for me, I've been playing organized football since I was 10. So, and just sports in general have moved the needle for me. Like I did well in school because my mom wasn't going to let me play sports if I didn't get A's or B's. So that motivated me to do that. So it was the foundation you felt like for you for so long that you had to mourn that to get over it and then strip yourself down almost to get to your true foundation. And for a lot of people, that's different things. When you're a believer and you're a person of faith, is getting back to that believing that, hey, like there's going to be other things on the other side of the horizon. Like God is going to provide other opportunities for you to look forward to.
Yeah, yeah, that's why we talk about me and Jason all the time. We talk about identity on the podcast and how when it comes to your assignment or your uh, your your position in life,
I
it
like
can't
that.
be
Your
it
assignment.
can't be it can't be your identity. It's almost like football, like NFL professional sports. It's like boarding a ship that you know is going to sink. Just because you're on the ship doesn't mean you are a part of the ship. Your identity is not the ship. So when that joint sinks, if that's you part of the ship, you going down too. But
Yeah.
if you're not, then you can honestly swim and do something else and get and be saved. So uh we talk football, we've talked life. Man, let's talk a little bit about Jesus, man. When did Jesus become something important in your life? When did you become a Christ follower who is like, you know what, I'm gonna seek God first, and then everything else after that is secondary.
I'm thankful to my mom. I think He's always been a part of my life, and even when it's in the background, I feel like when you always have prayer warriors in your corner, like he's always there. So I can remember being that young kid going to church where you're leaned on your mom's shoulder and you're dozing off, but like you've always been there, you've always been in it. When somebody's grandmother's handing you a peppermint in church to keep you like, I remember those things as a kid and being in that experience. So as you grow and you continue to get older, I can remember being probably middle school age and going away to a camp where we were talking about Jesus, and you have those very spiritual movements where you're in tears and everything of that nature. But I would say, like, from my own validity, when I got to college, I think is when it really made an impact on my life. I think before then it was always there, but you're almost believing because you're taught to believe in a sense. And when I got to college, there was a guy by the name of Sean Tucker who was 2 years ahead of us, and he was a part of Athletes in Action. He was a captain, he was a leader on our football team, and he would pick us up as freshmen and he would take us to the local church, or he would take us wherever it was to get the word, and he just continued to pour into us. And I think it was at that point you kind of realize, leaving high school, getting into college, like, oh wow, like I can be at this level, I can have fun in college, and I can still chase God, and I can still like let him be a huge part of my life. I can still live a life that is obedient to him and that he would find joy in, but also still like be a football player, still have fun in the locker room, still be a good friend, and all of those different things. I think going in, you don't realize that because when you turn the TV on, whether it's a movie, whether it's a TV show, chasing professional sports, you felt like you had to be one way or the other. You didn't know that you could combine the two. So I credit him. He's now an athletic director at Rome, but he was working at Rutgers. So I still get to be around him. And we always talk about, like, man, that was a very pivotal point. And it was myself, my brother, Taekwon Underwood. We were all roommates in college as freshmen who all ended up going on to play in the NFL. Taekwon's now coaching, but like that was such a foundational piece in our lives at that point. So I think for me, from that point on, it's been ups and downs, as you're transitioning when you get to the league. Now it's a different set of circumstances around you. Now, how do you figure out who you are? How do you keep God first? And all of those were always a struggle. And I always credit at that time, whether it was couple studies, whether it was chapel before a game, whether it was Monday chapel after meetings, like there was so many touch points. Reggie was our team chaplain when I was in Tennessee. He married my wife and myself. Like, God, I think for me, has always placed people in my life that has always been there, like as a reminder. Like
Mm.
sometimes you feel like you're starting to fade away, and then next thing you know, I got to New England. I met a guy, Jack Easterby, and you go on here, have a conversation, and you start to talk. And sometimes it's revealing to yourself. It's like, man, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be. I'm not being who I said I want to be. I remember going to Miami, and the first day I got there, I meet with the player development guy, Caleb Thornhill, and he's a guy of strong faith. And we talked for 2 hours. And this is when I'm just going there to sign my contract and do a physical. And we just hit it off. And that's what I mean. There's just always been people there to pull you back in. I almost even feel like with now transition out of it. Like I got into Good Morning Football, and Jason, I know you can relate to this, where you get into the broadcasting world, and Good Morning Football was a show that was 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. That means waking up at 4:30 in the morning
Yep.
every single day. And in my mind, I was going to do Good Morning Football for the foreseeable future. And staying close to God while doing that was a challenge for me, because mornings would be when I would always wake up and I would get into the word, whether it's on my Bible app. I would start a program and I would go through it with my plans. And you start there when you wake up at 4:30. A lot of times for us, especially as athletes, you come off, you're like, I'm just going to wake up early and start my day. Man, it was hard to wake up earlier than 4:30 to start my day. So you fast forward, you do 2 seasons there, and you feel like it's such a loss because the show's moving to LA. I'm not willing to move with it. And then you lose the show. And whenever you lose something, you get back to who you are. And like that benefited me losing that, I think, to find myself again, my family, and everything of that nature. So I think throughout it all, has been people in my life that he's placed there to continue to pull it, either people or circumstances that continue to find my way of getting back to him.
Yeah, that's so good, man. That God is sovereign enough and providential, and He cares about each individual one of us enough to place specific people in your life.
Yeah.
I actually would pray for that when I was in high school. Like, Lord, please place good people around me that will help me on the right path. And I've seen it. I've seen it every single day of my life, and when you look back, you see that's grace, man. Like for Him to care enough to really place these people in your life to say, hey, getting off the rails a little bit. Hey,
Hmm.
go this way a little bit, but then also to help you through certain things like uh, transition out of the game, and as you're saying, like losing the show. And it's interesting how God will prune certain things. Like we talk about in the gospel, talks about bearing fruit a lot, and I mean that's essentially us. We have our roots are planted somewhere, and they got to be fed, and then we bear fruit. But nobody talks about the pruning process. When fruit is good, you take it off the branches, and it's for other people's benefit.
Hmm.
So that process of that, how have you seen God in your life where He's pruned you? Like even that show, the show is a good thing. There's good things in life, and as humans, like we get comfortable with that. I want this good thing for the foreseeable future until God's like, well, that was for this season, but I want this for you. I have this for you. So that pruning process, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that shows up for me when you lose opportunities and you feel like, to your point, like where's the good that comes out of this? And for me recently, I would say it's been my family. I think as I've lost some opportunities professionally, I've gained a lot more time at home. And you don't realize how special it is until you're out there at a baseball game and your son catches a fly ball in center field after you've been out at the field with him, hitting fly balls to him time after time, even days that he really didn't want to do it. And then the ball goes in the air and I'm squatting down and I'm looking, and that anxious feeling you have, and he catches it and I'm out there behind the fence and I'm like, yeah, and you're going nuts. And like, it's those moments that you realize, man, like how special these moments are. Last Friday, my son is getting ready to play another year of tackle football, and three of his buddies, they didn't have camp on Friday. So I take four kids to the field and we're just going over the basics of tackling. And like the energy and the passion that comes out of that, that you don't always know that's there, and things that you didn't really kind of foresee for you in the future. Like to me, those are the moments where like, you're like, man, he is here. When I'm going to watch my daughters do tumbling and they're struggling to maybe get a back handoff or a back tuck, and they're doing it and they hit it. And when they come to the side and I'm recording it, like, let me see the video, and you see the smile on their faces. I think for me now in transitioning, those have been the moments, because you get so tied up and like chasing this machine of work, of you always feel like you have to prove to yourself that you can accomplish certain things. I think that's the scary thing. And football, it obviously motivated us. Like we talked about, you want to win a championship, you want to become a starter, you want to get paid, and then you transition into broadcasting, and it's just like you realize like, oh wow, what's an Emmy? Oh, you can win an Emmy off of hard work. I don't even know what the heck an Emmy is, but well, now I see that it's out there. Well, now I want to work harder to win an Emmy, or now I want more days at ESPN. I want to be on this show. I want to be on that show. And then for me, I worked at ESPN through the draft, and then my contract ended. So there's no games to call for CBS. There's been no appearances on ESPN. So I've just been home. And like you're nervous for that time. And then as you're going through it, you're like, I actually enjoy this time at home. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy knowing that there is like a job to come and there's going to be time to focus on that. But I enjoy being grounded right now of just working on self, like not having to go and do all of these different things, but being able to teach the kids how to ride a bike and now ride around the neighborhood with them. Like that for me has been, you're now, to your point, you're pouring in and you're watering different seeds and you're getting to see the fruit of that and how special that is.
Amen. Amen. That's a great place to be. I've enjoyed that too. And God creates those pockets. He's like, look,
Mm-hmm.
you got your family. That's what's most important is discipling them in your household first. So send them out, right?
Yep.
And I think God looks at us like that, like being at the baseball field, hitting pop flies, waiting for us to catch it, right? And when we do, it could be one little small step of faith that we take, and He's like, "That's my son, or
Yep.
that's my daughter, right
That's
there."
good.
And He looks at us like that. But Jason, I know you had another question.
Yeah, I just want to close it out here, Jay, with the time you've been giving us and it's been so generous. A couple questions. Is there a piece of scripture, a favorite Bible verse, something that you've kind of meditated on that's always encouraged you, or something that the Lord has been showing you right now?
Yeah, I would say Philippians 4:6 for me, where he just talks about like don't be anxious about anything, but prayer, thanksgiving, and supplication, like you get the peace of God which surpasses all understanding. And for me, like I would read that verse before every single game. And it meant so much to me because I would get anxious before games, but you want to perform, you want to be good at something, and you take that verse and then you walk away from the game. And now with being a dad, like you're so anxious being a husband about whatever it is. When your kids start a new camp, when they're getting ready to play in the game themselves, there is nothing like watching your kid pitch in a game. Like I thought football and my daughter's cheer, watching your kid on the mound, he's in such a lonely place. And like I've had to repeat that to myself. Like you don't have to like just with prayer, with thanksgiving, with something, like you don't have to yell at him after every pitch to do something. Like just let him go deal with it. My oldest one does cheer, and last year in her performances she would do an aerial, and like it was a big part in the performance and she would have to run it, and like you're so nervous for her, like you want her to nail it. So it's like those anxieties now, they show up in every portion of your life. And like I always go back to that scripture. I remember we had it one day in chapel with Jack Easterby, and he would give us these printouts, and that same printout I would just keep, and I would read over it every single game. And like that scripture has shown up for me all the time.
Yeah, I love the end of it where it says the peace of God, which doesn't make any sense, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. So there's such a wonderful outcome that Paul talks about, I guess, if you not being anxious and through prayer and petition, and this peace is going to come that will guard our hearts and minds. So that's a great verse, no doubt. How can we be praying for you? This will be the last question. How can our audience, how can Matt and I be praying for Jason McCourty, today?
I would say just continue clarity on what's next for me. I think, and that comes with the family aspect of it and balancing the family and the professional aspect. I think that for me right now, with where I am in life, has been a huge part. Those are daily conversations with my wife of trying to figure out exactly. She challenges me when it comes to trying to, you're getting a job offer here and a job offer there. And I'm talking to her about, all right, should we be going this way or that way? And she'll just look at me and say, well, what's the end goal? Like, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to achieve? Because we can sacrifice as a family when we know where we're trying to get. So I think clarity that way for me will be huge, because I think it helps me be a better leader and a better husband for my wife and for my kids.
Amen. Well, Jason, man, you've given us way more time than we've asked for. So we appreciate you coming on Sports Spectrum, and look forward to having you on again at some point.
Anytime, fellas. Appreciate what you guys are doing, man.
Yes, sir.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportspectrum.com.